So, I've lived in America for just over half of my life, basically a whole decade. I spent all of my teenage years here, and I have met and been friends with a lot of different people, and been in a lot of different situations. And most importantly, I've been able to meet and talk to people with a lot of different perspectives. So, before I leave the country and go back to England, I want to talk a little bit about perspective, and what I've learned from having a perspective outside of the scope of the US. So, I moved here at the age of 7, and I had done quite a few years of school in the UK by the time I'd moved. I'd been raised by an English family, in an English school with English friends. I was never raised religious, but my grandparents on my mother's side were, and they would generally take me to church and teach me their beliefs when I visited them. I was raised apolitically, except for the values of being nice and being kind and fair to those who I can help. So I kind of had my own perspective on things when I moved, as, humans generally form their perspective based off their own surroundings. I moved to Arizona in 2010, and this is where my perspective ended up clashing with a lot of other perspectives, and I think what forms my opinions and beliefs today come from this time in my life. It was very much a culture clash when I moved. Patriotism was intense, to a degree that it never was when I'd lived in England, with the Pledge of Allegiance being recited each day, and so many of my peers calling America the greatest country on earth, despite never travelling elsewhere. I believe that this culture clash, this culture shock, woke something up inside of me. It showed a young me that not everyone thinks the same, not everyone has the same life or experiences or perspectives, and then as time passed, more and more things informed my perspective. Getting bullied for being a foreigner, or people expecting me to see America in the same light that they did. When I was younger, I was obviously a child, so I never exactly cared or needed to. Let's be real here. I'm a white guy, and when I was younger, I used to live in a massive house in a community where I never had to worry about money or any of the systemic social or societal issues that our society deals with. I was able to stay apolitical for a long time. When I was 13, my parents got divorced and my dad moved out of the country. My mum, brother, and I ended up moving across town and downsizing pretty massively, and money, while still a lot luckier than a lot of people, certainly got tighter. But more importantly, I had just moved out of a massively white, predominantly Republican community into a much more diverse one. People from different income brackets, different cultures and backgrounds, more perspectives. And this is what led to a big shift in my own perspective. I met different people with different perspectives and was able to engage and communicate with them like never before. And my ability to communicate with people was aided, I believe, from the fact that I never really identified with the perspective of the area I was in at the first part of my time in America. The patriotic outlook and perspectives and mindsets / ideals of the people in the area I had lived in never really had an effect with or resonated with me, because it was so different to what I was used to as a kid, so it never rubbed off on me. And the perspective I had when I was younger in England, well, there wasn't really anyone other than my mum who was around who just had that same experience or perspective to talk to. So I didn't really have anyone who I could befriend and be in a bubble with. A bubble of perspective, a bubble of politics or ideals or anything elsewise. I made friends with Republican kids, Democrat kids, rich kids, poorer kids, LGBT kids, straight cis kids, native kids, POC. And as we got older and as we got more involved in political circles, they would all stay in their bubbles, and they would rarely talk to people who disagreed with them unless they had to, or they would barely listen to perspectives outside their own circles. But I was in so many different bubbles, I saw a lot of different perspectives and arguments that I was able to empathize with, even if I hated them. They're still people. Even if I didn't agree with their arguments, I was able to at least see where they were coming from their perspective. You see, obviously our beliefs and understandings of the world are influenced by the people who raise us and the way we grow up, but when I got blasted with so many different perspectives in my teenage years, I was able to see a little more clearly. And I don't think I fell into that trap of villainizing and disregarding the other side or having too much bias. I consider myself extremely lucky this way. I was able to take the time to learn and inform myself about so many different walks of life and social issues just by listening to the different perspectives on them. And all because of the friends I had, I never fell into the trap of listening to one side or one news source or the other, or social media algorithms that are designed to pull you down one side of an argument and polarize you for clicks. I've gotten close, but now I think I can recognize those pretty clearly. So, what is the point here? Why am I working on this essay? Well, Because I want to say that if there's one thing that I've learned from being in the US, and one message or lesson that I could impart to anyone, it would be to listen. Go out and find new sources, new friends. Travel the world, learn about other cultures, other histories. Don't fall down that trap of staying in one social bubble. And just because people disagree with you or don't believe in the same things as you, there's always going to be a reason, and only by listening and loving and discussing in good faith will you be able to get anywhere with these discussion. You've got to put down your own ego and talk. Because only then will we be able to get anything done.